So I don't have any slides for today. I will start off from I am working from our clinical practice and residency website. Um, the URL is kind of complicated. I do have a link to this on Moodle, I believe. If not, I will add one. But you can also get to this website by typing bit.ly/Nichols with a capital N and then capital CPR. That will always get you to this website. And I'll actually paste a link in the chat also if you want to get to it really quickly. This website basically has all of the information you will ever need related to clinical practices, whether it's visiting schools to start doing observations, when you are able to start doing that, when you're ready to apply for student teaching and our residency. The application lives on this website. If you click on advising registration information, we have some electronic documents that your advisors can use if they are completing advising virtually. And if you click on clinical experiences, this is literally all of the information, like what levels mean, the placement policy whenever you request a placement, that process, information about what you should do when you get your placement, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you don't really have a use for that this semester, unfortunately, but when you are able to start going into schools, this website has all that information. If you need background check instructions, that lives here also. To complete clinical experience demographics, which you will still do this semester even though you don't go into schools. That lives on this website along with a full tutorial of how to complete that form. All that information lives here. And then of course, there's a tab that says Praxis information. Really quickly before I keep going, if in the chat you could drop which Praxis exam you need to work on. Are you looking at Praxis 1, Praxis 2, just so that I know what kind of information you guys need at this point. So if you are not sure, if you had an ACT score of 22 or higher, you are exempt from Praxis 1. We can use your ACT score instead of Praxis 1 scores. If not, it's okay. We have a lot of people who do not meet that criteria. You will just complete what's called the Praxis Core or Praxis 1 exams. It used to be called Praxis 1 a long time ago, and that's just the term everyone's familiar with. But the exams are actually called Praxis Core. So if you see Praxis Core exams, that is the same thing. So I'm going to go through really quickly the Praxis 1 information so that if anyone needs to find that, you know where to find it. And then I'll go over a little overview of Praxis 2 and what that will look like for you guys. So when you click on this first Praxis information link, this page is just an overview of each of the exams. I also have this disclaimer, or this kind of announcement, because Praxis is currently offering the option to take exams at home, which means you would register for an exam and then choose a proctor time where you would log on to ProctorU and you would complete the exam through ProctorU. If you've never used ProctorU before, basically you log onto their website and then there is someone at ProctorU who kind of sits in front of a computer and monitors several students at once. So it's not just you and a proctor one-on-one. They kind of have a monitor, and then there's an automated system that kind of checks to make sure you're not clicking on other websites and different things like that. So if you need that option, it should still be available, or it more than likely is available, but they have started opening testing centers once again. As part of your 250 class, I believe you should have, or you will create a Praxis account, an account on the Praxis homepage. And once you do that, you can log in and see where the testing centers are, and you can kind of see what dates you could register for the exam. That website has everything you will ever need related to Praxis, including what's on the individual exams, how to register, and all that kind of information. I just want to focus on today, like where to find information once you're ready to start thinking about Praxis and studying, and then get into the point where you're ready to actually register for and take the exam. Because as part of 250, you'll kind of look at the Praxis website and create your account and talk about the tests you need in there also. So Praxis 1 is typically taken before 250. However, because of COVID, people couldn't take the exam, so we did make an exception for this current semester. Before you are able to register for Education 312, which would be your next block, you will need to take the Praxis 1 exam, or you will need an ACT score of 22 or higher. So you can actually retake the ACT you would feel more comfortable with that, we can accept new ACT scores as well. And I'll show in a second the difference and like the pros and cons of each option. So when you're on this page, I have links to the different pages for each of these options. So we have a Praxis 1 page, an ACT page, and then Praxis 2, because the resources differ a little bit for each of these options, obviously. So I'm going to click on Praxis 1. Here, again, it's that same message at the top. There's a link to the Praxis homepage if you want to explore that website. Again, you will create an account as part of your 250 class if you have not done that already. And then here's the actual names and numbers for the tests that you will register for. So Praxis 1 or Praxis Core is a reading, writing, and math exam. We have to look at the scores separately. So there's a different score for each of those exams. If you wanted to register for all three at the same time, you can do that. I believe you get 55 minutes or 60 minutes for 55 questions. If you happen to finish the reading exam in 50 minutes, you would just jump right into the writing exam and keep going. So you don't have to wait like 20 minutes to be able to move on. You would just kind of move seamlessly between all of those. You should get an estimate score once you finish, and then they will send you like your actual score once they kind of review everything. I do want to point out, if you are looking at registering for these, there are some tests still out there on their website with the same exact name, but the number is different because they made a new updated version of the test. So just make sure you cross-reference whatever's listed here or whatever your instructors provide you with to make sure you are registering for the correct exam. I'm not sure why they couldn't take off the old one, but it is there, so just make sure you pay really close attention. And the numbers are pretty close, so just be careful when you're registering for the test. For study resources, there's tons of free stuff out there, and then there, of course, is some materials that you can purchase depending on how much you feel like you need to prepare for the exam. The Praxis website, like I said, has a list of all the, and this is also true for Praxis too, they have a list of all the topics on the exam. They also have links to some study materials, and then of course they have their own study materials that they have prepared that you can purchase. I have heard really good things about the items you can purchase from their website. Obviously, it's created by the same company who makes the test, so one would hope that it's pretty good at preparing you for that exam. But you don't have to purchase the materials in order to pass the test. I know several students who never purchased those books who have been successful at Praxis Core and Praxis 2 exams. So if you're not into purchasing things, there are free resources on Quizlet. You can search for the name or number of the test. I also have a link to, like, you can paste this link and find, people have created tons of flashcards that you can just find on there and utilize. There's some practice questions and different activities you can do with those flashcard sets. And then there's actually a mobile device app you can download, which is like an easy way to kind of study on the go. And they have different activities related to the content on the Praxis exams. Once you've done a little bit of review of the content, you can use this resource called Learning Express Library, which you have access to as a Nichols student. So I'm actually going to click on this. And if you click on this link here, I have step-by-step instructions for how to register for an account. It's done through the Nichols library, so you don't have to pay for it. You just kind of have to authenticate yourself as a student in their system. And then once you have your account, you can sign in and search for any kind of test: Praxis, ACT, Praxis Core, Praxis 2, even like some of those nursing exams, the GRE, they have tons of prep material in there, and you can actually access a practice test that will give you the experience of taking the actual test. So it will shut you off when the timer is up. So it kind of helps you figure out how many questions you would be able to get through in the amount of time you are given. They also have some other options too, like Practice and Learner, which will give you the answers to the questions as you are answering them. So it kind of helps you continue to study. So my recommendation is always kind of do some prep, and once you feel like you're in a good place, try a practice test to see where you stand, and figure out if you need to focus on more topics or certain topics a little bit more than others. So definitely check out the Learning Express Library resource. Any questions specific to Praxis 1 before I jump into Praxis 2? If you do need to take Praxis 1, you have a little bit of time, and in fact, and this goes for Praxis 2 also, if your advisor has told you to start looking at it, the break between this semester and next semester would be a great time to look at registering for and taking those exams. While the semester is not, while there's no semester things happening, the whole month of December basically would be a really good time. Your goal, if you need Praxis 1, would be like the beginning of January, maybe like the second week in January, because you want to have time for your scores to be sent here for education 312. So you will be put on a wait list until you have those scores into us, and then you would be registered for that class. So you want to try to have it done as soon as you can. That way you don't have to wait until the very last second to be added to the class. All right, I'm going to jump to Praxis 2. So on this site, there is a tab here that says Praxis 2. Praxis 2 is dependent on your major. So birth to 5 majors take a certain set of exams, elementary ed majors take a set, and then secondary majors take a set of exams. Every major takes what's called a Principles of Learning and Teaching exam, or the PLT, which is focused on teaching strategies and all of the theorists and other educational strategies that you learn in some of your ed classes. That one is related to the grade levels you will teach. So birth to 5 is an early childhood PLT, 1 to 5 is elementary education, so it's like grades kindergarten to 6, and then secondary is a 7th to 12th grade PLT because it's focused on the students in the grade levels that you are being certified to teach. Then everyone also has content knowledge exams, and this is the content that you would be teaching. So secondary majors, as you can see on this list, have one content exam because they will teach one subject area. So there's an English, science, social studies, facts, and math. There are also music and art content exams, but those students don't typically take this class. But there are other exams for other subject areas for secondary majors. If you are a 1 to 5 or birth to 5 major, you take an exam related to each content area. So reading, math, social studies, and science. And actually these two groups take the same exact content knowledge exams. So you are all studying for and taking the same exams, and you can see the numbers are exactly the same. For those, just like with Praxis 1, you can register for all 4 at the same time if you want. You would just move on to the exams as you complete them. However, that is 4 complete exams all in the same day, which can be a lot. So just kind of think about that as you are thinking about registering for all of them. You can register for them all 4 of them, and then if you pass 3 and not 1, you can just take the individual exam. You don't have to retake all 4 of them if you don't pass one of them, which is nice. So birth to 5 and 1 to 5 have the same content exams. If you are a birth to 5 major, you also will take the special education praxis because you are certified to be an early interventionist. So you will take that as part of your degree. For the 1 to 5 degree, the special education praxis is optional because it's not because the degree is an elementary ed degree, but you do have the option to become a certified special education teacher. And to do that, you would just take this praxis exam before you student teach or do residency. And then for residency, you would be split between a regular ed teacher and a special ed teacher so that you have those experiences before you graduate. And that just means you can serve as an inclusion teacher or in other positions within our schools that work with students who have disabilities, and that kind of depends on the school. You will learn a lot more about that option as part of your SPED courses in the 1 to 5 program. So I usually recommend not even really making a decision about this until after you've taken some classes in that sequence, like Ed 392, 382, 394, all of those classes with Dr. Shanman, where he talks a lot about serving in that capacity as a teacher. So you don't even have to think about that one for now. All of these exams are related to, or the PLT exams are related to things you would be learning in your ed classes. So typically your advisor will recommend that you wait until after certain classes to start looking at your Principles of Learning and Teaching exam. So there's content in your psych classes, in your introductory ed classes. So it's not like you finish Praxis 1 and then immediately jump into Praxis 2. You really want to wait until you get some of that content. That way you have background knowledge before you even go into that exam. The content exams really is just content related to those subject areas. So if you feel like you want to go in right now and take the math content exam and you feel like you've mastered that topic, you could absolutely do that. And I've had students pass some of the content exams before they even finish 251. It really just depends on how confident you feel with those subject areas right now, and if you've taken those gen ed classes that are related to those subject areas like history or the math sequence and different things like that. So that is the spiel about Praxis 2. I know it is a lot. This information is available at any time you need it once you are ready to start thinking about those exams. For Praxis 2, your advisor will typically kind of talk to you about that when they know you are ready to start looking at those exams. So if this is your first semester in education classes, then it may be this semester or it may be next semester when they really start talking to you about Praxis and recommending that you register for it and take those exams. The goal is for you to be done with Praxis exams by the time you are ready to complete residency. So just think about the timeline that you have before residency, and that's kind of how you would map out with your advisor when you would take these exams. Any questions about Praxis 2 or Praxis 1 or anything like that? Once again, if you scroll on this page, there are study resources specific to these exams. You can just search for the name of the test or the test code on Quizlet, and you will find tons of resources there. There's another website called Teachers Test Prep, which I have heard really good things about from students who have utilized that resource. And then Learning Express also has Praxis 2 related stuff. If you have to take the content exam for Birth to 5 or 1 to 5, I also highly recommend these Facebook groups. I've been in these since like March, and so many people have shared their experiences with the exams. Like some people will take the exam and hurry up and write down the questions that they remember, and then they've shared them in these groups, which is really awesome. And it's just some really good like actual advice from people who have recently taken the exams. The others have even like explained what it's like to do the proctored at home option. So I highly recommend just like joining and reading some of the posts from members if you are a Birth to 5 or elementary ed major. I have learned a ton just as an observer, not even posting anything. And then a couple of our students have actually posted in the group and gotten advice. So it's just a really great resource from like actual people, not just like Quizlet. You kind of don't know who's made those study resources and you don't have any background information. Whereas with this, a lot of them will respond to questions in the comments if you comment on their posts. And it's just been really awesome to see like educators supporting other educators, because some of them are actually teachers in a school trying to get their certification. So I highly recommend that resource if you are preparing for those exams. Any questions, comments?